Hey, what's going on, everybody? It's the CD guy, Johnny Z here. Thank you so much for tuning back into the channel, and today I'm going to take a look at 10 essential classic rock albums everyone should own, especially if you're starting a CD or record collection. These really aren't in any particular order, but let's get things started here with my number 10. I'm going to go with Appetite by Guns N' Roses. It's the album in which GNR have been able to coast by for the last 40 years, which is not so much a knock on Guns N' Roses, but rather a testament to how strong and timeless this record really is. GNR hit the scene with so much aggression and energy and tenacity, and quickly rose to prominence with the release of Appetite. And I think the Guns N' Roses lineup from Appetite of Destruction is the best version of GNR still to this day. Even if you're not a fan of Guns N' Roses and what they did, in the decades to come afterwards, chances are you've heard this album on classic rock radio to death, right? It's an essential for sure, with classics on here like Welcome to the Jungle, It's So Easy, Night Train, Out to Get Me, Mr. Brownstone, Paradise City, My Michelle, one of my favorite GNR songs of all time. You have Sweet Child of Mine, obviously, You're Crazy, Anything Goes, and Rocket Queen to close things out. Classic record here, absolutely timeless, like I said. And again, even if you're not a big GNR fan, this is a record that I think everybody should own, and it's one that's played on radio all the time, and for good reason. Next, I'm going to go with London Calling, classic double album here by The Clash that sees the band expanding on their sound more so than ever before, incorporating a wide range of styles into this record here. Of course, you have punk, but also reggae, rhythm and blues, jazz, and hard rock as well. This album is stacked from top to bottom, in my opinion. Just classic stuff on here from beginning to end, and it was a groundbreaking album in the post-punk era, and really one that I think pushed, the limits of what it could be all the way to its fullest extent here. So The Clash doing some excellent experimentation here on London Calling. Fantastic record, definitely paid off, and in my opinion, one of their strongest studio efforts, and an absolute post-punk essential. How about Moving Pictures by Rush? World-class musicianship here on display by the band, and Rush had a few candidates, I think, for this list. I am limiting myself, by the way, to one pick per band, but for me, I think Moving Pictures definitely does take it, with some borderline anthemic tracks on here, like Tom Sawyer and Limelight, and YYC is an incredible showcase for the band and their abilities, especially Neil Peart on the drums, and side 2, in my opinion, is absolutely perfect as well, with, The Camera Eye, Witch Hunt, and Vital Signs to close things out. All-time classic here by Rush. Like I said, there were a few options I think I had for Rush in their catalog for this list, but ultimately, gotta go with Moving Pictures here at number 8. Moving on now, I'm gonna go with this classic self-titled debut album here from 1978 by Van Halen. Incredible stuff. Of course, an absolute classic. Another one of those records that's played on classic rock radio, I'd say about 90% of it, and again, for good reason. Now, for me personally, I'm more of a fan of the Van Hagar era than I am of the David Lee Roth stuff, but I can't deny how essential this album, and really everything that they did with David Lee Roth, is to classic rock, and what it should be to a CD collection. You absolutely need to have those classic VH albums, in my opinion. So this record here is stellar from top to bottom. A perfect debut by Van Halen. Got Eddie Van Halen shredding on Eruption. Running with the Devil is great. You Really Got Me, great cover. Ain't Talking About Love. Jamie's Crying, Atomic Punk. On Fire, Little Dreamer, so many great songs on here. It's a lot of fun from the ultimate party rock band. So, again, even though I prefer the Van Hagar era, I can't deny the greatness of this debut album here. My number 7 on the list. Another really fun album here, I'm going to go with Some Girls by the Rolling Stones. And, I was torn between this album and Exile on Main Street for which one I was going to choose for this list. But ultimately, I think Some Girls is more concise, and so I decided to go with this one here. Very tight album, full of classic tracks on here like Miss You. Some Girls, the title track is great. Lies, Faraway Eyes, Respectable, some good cuts there. Beast of Burden, Shattered, fantastic stuff here. Definitely the Stones in their prime, in my opinion, with some fantastic vocals by Mick Jagger here. Really catchy tracks. Again, a lot of these songs are radio staples and live staples as well. I'm seeing the Rolling Stones live in about a month, so I'm really excited to see them, and hopefully they play a lot of stuff from this album. Just looking forward to hearing some of the classics like Miss You and Beast of Burden, Shattered. I have not seen the set list for their upcoming tour. They started it, right? I think a couple nights ago was their first show. I did not see what the set list was, but I'm assuming they're going to be doing some of the classics here from this album, and I can't wait to hear it. Number 5, how about Rumours by Fleetwood Mac? There isn't one skippable song on this whole album. Fleetwood Mac improved upon the massive strides they took with Self-Titled a year earlier and made an even stronger record here with Rumours. It was an album marred by dysfunction between the bandmates, and the fact that they were even able to make an album at all is very impressive. Never mind one that's all killer and no filler. All the drama seemed to make the band better and make them better songwriters, especially on classic tracks on here, like, of course, Secondhand News, Dreams, Never Going Back Again, Don't Stop, Go Your Own Way, Songbird, The Chain. Let's see, Gold Dust Woman, Silver Springs. Every song on here is fantastic. You know, I just listed more than half of this track listing there. The whole album is classic, and again, not a skippable song in the batch. So fantastic stuff by Fleetwood Mac here with Rumours. Great, great stuff. Number 5 on the list. Number 4, I'm going to go with Abbey Road by the Beatles. And, you know, I could have gone with my favorite Beatles album, Sgt. Pepper, for this list, but I think Abbey Road perfectly encapsulates everything that all 4 of the Beatles did together, you know, in their catalog in such a short period of time, too. And I think if you were to create the ultimate Beatles album and the culmination of their sound up to that point, it would have to be Abbey Road. You know, it just has everything that made the Beatles, right? You have John Lennon's oddball songwriting on Come Together, classic George Harrison compositions with Here Comes the Sun and Something. Paul McCartney has his moments as well with Oh Darling and Maxwell's Silver Hammer, which apparently the latter took the band like a week to record, and they wanted to kill him afterwards, but I think it ended up okay. Also on here you have a really fun Ringo Starr track with Octopus's Garden, and then of course the great medley to close things out. Fantastic stuff. Oh, not to mention I Want You, She's So Heavy, which is just a fantastic early heavy metal song, definitely Black Sabbath before Black Sabbath, one of my favorite Lennon compositions in the Beatles, and so this album here is top tier. It's just classic after classic after classic, and absolutely is a must-have record, but let's be honest, the Beatles never made a bad album, so all the records are must-have. Number 3, Led Zeppelin IV by Led Zeppelin. It is the perfect Zeppelin studio album, in my opinion, from beginning to end here, showcasing all of the talents of all 4 members here. The album is structured perfectly with no weak songs. You know, the first 4 Zeppelin albums were all groundbreaking records, and definitely were all candidates for this list, but in terms of influence and importance, I think Led Zeppelin IV is the one that I would show someone who was, you know, first getting into Led Zeppelin, and, you know, I think it's absolutely a must-have for sure, so wanted to put it on the list here, wanted to put it pretty high, even though these are really in no particular order, but for me, if there was one Zeppelin album that I had to show somebody who was new to the band, it would definitely be Led Zeppelin IV. Number 2, Let There Be Rock by AC/DC. You know, again, a band with a lot of candidates for this list here, but I love the Bon Scott era here, and this album is loaded from top to bottom. I mean, a perfect album here by AC/DC. Go Down, Dog Eat Dog, Let There Be Rock, Bad Boy Boogie, Problem Child, Overdose, Hell Ain't a Bad Place to Be, and Whole Lotta Rosie. Every song is an absolute banger, in my opinion. I mean, you can't go wrong with any of these tracks, and really you can't go wrong with any AC/DC album, period. But for me, this album is one of their all-time best, and an absolute essential as well. Definitely a classic from the Bon Scott era here. Love the album art as well. Great shot of the band. Fantastic stuff, in my opinion. Love the guitar work here by Angus and Malcolm Young, the vocals and the lyrics by Bon Scott. This is also the final album with bassist Mark Evans in the band, so everybody here firing on all cylinders. It's a classic from the Bon Scott era that I just couldn't leave off this list. Definitely an essential, and really I would say everything from the Bon Scott era is an essential as well, but Let There Be Rock, an absolute classic, no doubt. And finally, coming in at number 1, it's got to be Dark Side of the Moon by Pink Floyd. Now, I would say, you know, listen to this track, listen to that track, isolate songs on here, but the reality is this album needs to be listened to in order. No shuffle, no skips, nothing like that, just in order from beginning to end, which is why it's so important to have it on CD or vinyl. Just a tremendous listening experience, right? Sonically, amazing work here by Pink Floyd, right? Roger Waters' lyrics are fantastic as well. It's got great ambience to it. I mean, the overall vibe and atmosphere of this record is otherworldly, in my opinion, and just every track is fantastic, but again, listen to it in order from beginning to end. That's how you can fully enjoy this record, which is why you gotta get, you gotta get this album on CD or vinyl on physical media and listen to it on a good pair of speakers. That is the best way to enjoy Dark Side of the Moon, in my opinion, so an absolute essential that had to be on this list, but really when it comes to the big 4 of the Pink Floyd catalog, which would be Dark Side of the Moon, The Wall, Wish You Were Here, and Animals, they're all essential albums that are must-have, but Dark Side of the Moon takes the cake for me, an absolute essential, number 1 here on the list. So that wraps up this list here of 10 essential rock albums everyone should own, especially if you're starting a CD or vinyl collection, which you guys can see right over here. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel down below, turn on the bell for notifications so you don't miss a new upload, and let me know down in the comment section below what are some other essential rock albums that everyone should own. Of course, I couldn't fit them all on this list here, so I want to hear from you and some of your picks as well, so please let me know all that good stuff down in the comments, and until next time, it's the CD guy, Johnny Z, signing off. Take care, everybody.